from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdes, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdes.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdes, Valdes with an S, at Rich Valdes on all of the social media. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of the program, Throwback Thursday. Happy to be here. It's a blessing. The phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDES. If you want to join us, open phone across America. Open phones is the fun part of the show, right? Where we get to chat and chop it up, and if you disagree, you get moved to the front of the line. So we definitely welcome free speech. We welcome all sorts of debate here. You just got to follow the FCC rules. Now, speaking of FCC rules, Jimmy Kimmel announced last night that ABC had announced that they were letting, pretty much taking him off the air indefinitely, not letting him go because, you know, there's a contract in place and they've got to pay him whether he talks or not. But conversely, let's say he's signed to a 5-year deal and he's only a year or two into it. And I don't know the exact deal yet. I haven't really looked too far into his employment situation. But I will say, if he's 2 years into a 5-year, that means he's got to collect money and not work for 3 years. The downside of that, and I'm giving you my perspective as if this were to happen to me. What does Kimmel do? Just get paid for the next 3 years, and then after 3 years, nobody knows him. He doesn't work. He's rusty. He's not in the game. And because he's working, he's probably not permitted to work anywhere else. So even though he's getting paid, and probably quite handsomely, I would bet, he still doesn't have much of a future, right? He's not. I can't presume in 3 years your stock is going to be the same way it is as if it is right now, right? Where you could say, hey, look, this is what I'm doing right now. So I could see why. I know he's doing all sorts of things to get out of his contract if he can't get back on the air. Now, people are protesting all over the place. I think we have a little bit of audio of that. Do we have audio, Mr. Good, of the protests? New York City? That was part of what I sent you. Okay, well, there were protesters in New York City that took to ABC headquarters in New York City to stand outside and picket the place. Multiple speakers, local politicians, lots of folks out there saying that we are limiting the free speech of Jimmy Kimmel. However, I will say, listen, Jimmy Kimmel is an employee or even a contractor, whatever it is, but he's getting paid by this company to provide this service, right? To be a funny guy, to host a show. Got it. He said some stuff that got him into problems, right? Now you have the commissioner of the FCC, Brendan Carr, who's been on this program, announcing on on Benny Johnson's podcast or live stream that, guess what? If you do these types of things can get you into problems with the FCC. ABC. So then, got it. So you do have now this this thing where you're now on the radar of the FCC. They're saying things about your commentary. They're not threatening. They didn't. I heard the clip of Commissioner Carr. He didn't say anything about a threat or anything like that. He just simply said that these are the things that could happen, and if this were to happen because of that, this would be, on you. So Jimmy Kimmel, of course, making comments that were, I would say, in poor taste and whatever it was, but it doesn't matter, right? It really ultimately it's his situation with his employer, right? It's a private deal that they have. And he can sue them, he can fight them, he can do whatever he wants. And conversely, they can do what they want. They can say, hey, look, we're going to honor your contract, we're going to pay you, but you can't be here anymore because you're costing us with our affiliates. And that's what ended up happening to him. So there's this conundrum. Now you've got the left saying that this is some sort of attack on free speech. But I would argue this is not an attack on free speech because this is the free market. It would be an attack on free speech if Jimmy Kimmel were outside in the middle of the street saying, look, you might know me from television, but I'm here to tell you that me personally, this is what I think about this topic. And then somebody actually tries to silence him. They arrest him. They do something that's out of the ordinary to prevent him from speaking. Well, then guess what? That sounds like they're preventing him from having free speech. But that's not what's happening here. He can get another job right now. If he can get a super duper lawyer to let him out of his deal, he could be on, he can get fired from ABC and go straight to CBS where they fired Colbert. Maybe they can make back some of the money they lost with Colbert and he can go host the Late Show over there. Nobody's stopping him from doing that. That's totally doable, minus maybe some of the obstacles in his contract. But it seems to me like there might be a buyout, a payout, a willingness to let him go, since who wants to pay somebody a whole bunch of money and not have them work, right? Makes sense so far. So he has these options available to him. So this is not about that. And this is not about, I heard Eric Swalwell, the congressman, say that this is because of Trump, that Trump is upset that Jimmy Kimmel made fun of him, so now he's going after him. Well, Trump could have went after him a long time ago, if that were the case. That's not the case. The case is Nexstar. Nexstar owns a bunch of these television stations that carry the show, and they said, we don't want the smoke with the FCC. We don't want these problems. And it's as simple as that. Now, I understand politics pretty well, and I get it. There's winks, there's nods, there's all sorts of things. I'm not saying that those things don't exist. I'm just saying this is very different than Joe Biden. Right? Now, Joe Biden was literally having the people from the White House call Twitter and say, we don't like what they're saying on Twitter. Do something about it. This is the government directly getting involved, not the government opining on a podcast. Right? If Joe Biden would have went on a podcast, let's say he goes on Rogan and says, I think the things that Secretary, my wife, the thing, right? The things he's saying are bad, and maybe they ought to silence the guy. Well, maybe that would have happened, right? But that's not. He literally had his employees going. He had some employees quitting their job at the FBI and getting a job in Twitter just to have that level of control. This was clearly a hand-in-glove operation. That's why they got rid of Trump. That's why they got rid of RFK Jr. Anybody who had an opposing opinion, they stopped. That's why they silenced the New York Post, America's oldest newspaper, when they tweeted, we have evidence of a laptop that is Hunter Biden admitting to all these different things, doing drugs, hookers, and all that stuff. You remember all that, right? I know I do. And what happened? They said, oh, it's fake, it's disinformation. They got 50 of their best friends in the intelligence community to say that it was Russian propaganda. Disinformation ahead of a campaign. Only later to admit all of it. No, it was all true. It was all real. Why? Because they wanted Biden to win the election. So again, that type of fascistic approach to government, no, doesn't work. What Trump is doing, he's a politician, and he's the president, and he's doing his thing as the chief executive. And guess what? Airtight. They're going to sue Trump on this, and I guarantee you he's going to win. They're going to sue Brendan Carr. They're going to sue the FCC. Everybody's going to get sued, right? Whether it's ABC, Nexstar, or somebody on their behalf trying to say that X, Y, and Z had a say in pushing them out, pushing Kimmel out, and this is some sort of tortious interference stopping them from making money. And I bet you they're all going to lose. Why? Because the government's within their rights. This is what they do. They give out these FCC licenses, and he was simply saying this is what could happen. I don't see it as a veiled threat. Even if it was a veiled threat, it's nothing compared to what the left did. And that's my point. If they can get away with what they did with the Twitter files, that was all revealed. It's the actual reason Elon Musk bought Twitter. If they can get away with all of that, Trump following the rules and coloring inside the lines, this is not a thing. Anyway, I want to take a moment before we take a pause. I want you to hear a little bit of what Jimmy Kimmel said that got him in trouble. Check this out.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. Okay. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction.
Fourth stage of grief, construction. Now, listen. That part, I think, would have been passable as a joke. The first part, and why we're talking about this whole thing, totally wrong, right? To say that MAGA is trying to pass off this guy that murdered Charlie Kirk as somebody other than one of theirs. This is clearly bad, right? If you know that you have a very popular president in President Trump, if you know that Americans are taking this Charlie Kirk thing very seriously because nobody wants to see someone get their brains blown out, or forgive me, his head nearly blown off. And I hate to even talk about this on the radio. No disrespect to the Kirk family. But it was gruesome. What happened to him was gruesome. Nobody wants to see that and then say that because of why it happened, right? Because of political differences, because this guy was dating a trans person, whatever the case may be. Right? We don't kill people. People don't like it. Everywhere I turn, I'm meeting somebody else that's like, man, I'm taking this so much harder. Did you know Charlie? Because I didn't even know him, but I'm really taken aback by this. Nobody likes this. This isn't good for people. It's not good for people to see these images. It's not good for us to experience this. It's not good for people to get killed. I hate to sound so blunt and so simplistic here. And for Jimmy Kimmel to do that, I think it's insensitive, for sure. Does that mean he should be fired? No, it doesn't. What it means is his company's in a position to say, we've gotten into a little heat. What do we do? How do we handle this potential smoke that's coming from the FCC? How do we handle this problem we're having with our biggest affiliate that carries the show, saying they don't want to carry the show? Because their audience doesn't like this type of thing, and they feel Jimmy Kimmel's gone too far. So now it's a thing. It's a dollars and cents thing in a private company that's making a choice, saying, look, this is the consequence of your action. This is not cancel culture. They're not trying to silence your speech. You can go somewhere else and say it. You just can't say it here. And that's the facts of what's going on. Now, straight ahead, I want to get into a little bit of, what causes this radicalization? What goes into the anatomy of this violent behavior? How do we get somebody to get to that level? Well, we're going to talk about that with the president of Just Facts straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Do you believe it's time to lower the temperature in terms of rhetoric in American politics?
I do, and I would say, to be very direct with you, this is something where Democrats are really going to have to get their act in order, and I'm being direct and honest about that. What happened to Charlie Kirk is because of the dangerous rhetoric from the left. When you try to call us Nazis or fascists or all of these deranged labels from very dark times in American history simply because you want to win political races, it's simply not correct. I'll go deeper than that. If you go to my colleague Steve Scalise, Steve Scalise almost lost his life because the shooter said very clearly that he thought that Republicans were going to take away health care and he had to do something. You got to be sober with the language that you use. Look, I'm not a Pollyanna. Politics is a rough sport. We're rubbing elbows all the time. We're trying to get our points across. But when you dehumanize your political rival, what you end up doing is you put them in harm's way from people who are deranged, who think that now they have to take matters into their own hands to save America. I want every elected official, whether I agree with them or not, every candidate, whether I agree with them or not, every activist, whether I agree with them or not, I want them to be able to go home and see their families, just like I want to go home and see my wife and see my kids.
That's Congressman Byron Donalds laying it down like it is, in my opinion, and citing a lot of interesting points, right? Because we've been having political debate in our country for a long time. And there are some examples in history where things turn violent, right? I mean, revolutions and whatnot, but even, incidents that were, just out of hand. The duel of Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr that happened in Weehawken, New Jersey, right? Those types of things, they're one-off, but they happened. But this isn't one of those things, right? This is along the lines of what we saw with, quite frankly, with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, or the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, the Attorney General. And, not to mention the assassinations of previous presidents, because I think, they have their own category of their own because they're previous presidents. But all that said, this is I think a unique part of history that we shouldn't have to go through, but these things happen, right? I understand that evil exists, and I'm not gonna, hide my head in the sand and say it doesn't. But in situations like this, and in many others, right, we can try our best to make sure that we don't exacerbate the problem, and that we try to make things better. But it seems like some people are fixated on escalating things and making the rhetoric hotter, and I think that's just antithetical to our purpose as people. So I want to bring in James Agresti. Jim Agresti is the president of Just Facts, justfacts.com, FACTS, and Just Facts is I would say one of the premier, for sure, think tanks outside of Washington, D.C. that I've relied on for a long time, because they use primary source data, and they give it to you like it is. And that's why I wanted him to come on and help me make sense of some of this stuff. Jim Agresti, welcome back.
Richie V, thank you for having me.
My pleasure, brother. Let's chop this up a little bit. So we've got this, in lieu of all the media hoopla, there's the reality of an assassination that occurred a week ago. There is the reality of people celebrating this, and the reality of Americans that are mourning it. And I saw your email earlier today, and I thought, that's what we need to be talking about, the stuff that you guys are looking into. So tell us more.
Sure. So I think in the clip you played from Congressman Byron Donalds, he made some very good points. However, Democrats and liberals would shoot back and say, well, look, Trump is calling Zoran Mandami a communist. That's not exactly a compliment, given the communists have killed more people than any other ideology in the history of the world. You also, have Trump calling the news media the enemy of the people, which is a phrase that, Nazi Germany's used against the Jews. So they'd say, hey, this is going both ways. So what I decided to do is look at this from a truly factual perspective.
Well, you know what, Jim, let's pause right there so that we leave everybody in a cliffhanger, because that is true. They are saying it's going both ways, but I would argue I don't think it's really going both ways. So we're going to take a look at the data you came up with when we return. Folks, we're coming right back with Jim Agresti from Just Facts. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdes.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's Rich Valdes, and we're talking about research that can slander and inspire murder, right? And some of the slander that's inspiring murder has been documented by Just Facts. They're a scholarly research and educational institute, and they've published a rigorously documented article that puts out a number of facts, and we're going to get into those right now. But we left off with James Agresti, who is the president of Just Facts, indicating that he looked at this stuff and saw that they're trying to paint a picture that things are happening on both sides of the aisle. And Melissa Horton, I believe is her name, the lawmaker in Minnesota, right, if I got that right. I remember covering that story on the air. Very unfortunate, and I'm very sorry about what happened to her. It was bad. I'm guessing that the motivation was political and that the guy didn't like Democrats. But it was by no way or no means inspired by MAGA, and not by his admission, not by anybody's, right? It just simply was he had a beef with the Democrats, particularly in Minnesota, particularly the governor. So that being said, minus that situation, there's been a trend of people that align with left-wing ideological views that have taken not only to violence, but to killing people. So that's my observation of the news and the facts, but I want to bring it to the president of Just Facts, Jim Agresti. Let's pick up where you left off.
Sure. So I came at this at a little different direction than everybody else. And what I wanted to do is look at it factually from a First Amendment and a moral perspective. First of all, the First Amendment is very broad, as it should be, because it serves a very important purpose. But there's some exceptions that have been laid out in Supreme Court rulings. One of them is that you cannot make a direct call for violence. I can't say, hey, guys, let's go kill Richie. You can't do that. That is not what the purpose of the First Amendment is for. It's to allow for political debate, not to stir up direct calls for violence. And secondly, if you maliciously or recklessly say something about someone that has real potential to cause them harm, they can sue you. All right? And that is using the power of the government to extricate money from people. So what I did is I looked for examples. This led me to three criteria. I looked for prominent Republicans, Democrats, conservative liberals, in other words, people who are in the public eye and are politically associated, who spread falsehoods that could inspire people to commit murder by misleading them to believe that their very lives are in danger. And as I started tallying up these examples, I came up with hundreds of examples from leading Democrats, media outlets, and scholars who did just that. They spread reckless and malicious falsehoods that can lead people to believe, hey, if I don't take action, I'm going to get hurt. Yeah. I'll give you one example among those hundreds, and this actually comprises hundreds of people even saying this. But leading up to the shooting in Butler, PA in 2024 of Donald Trump, and let's not forget the killing of Corey Comparator, Democrats and media outlets were all saying that Donald Trump threatened a bloodbath if he lost.
Right,
now, if you took 38 seconds to watch the clip of what he said, you'd know that he used the term bloodbath to describe the effects of Biden's policies, particularly on car manufacturing, not as a violent threat.
Right, on the market. It was really a market term.
Yeah, it was. And yet, one day after that shooting, ABC's George Stephanopoulos and Martha Raddatz poured fuel on the fire by declaring that Trump contributed to violent rhetoric because he said it's going to be a bloodbath if I don't get elected. The day after that, President Biden said the same thing. Now, to people who gullibly believe such fictions, they are a license for violence because they mislead people to fear that Trump and his supporters are plotting to kill them.
Yep, and that feeds right into he's a fascist, they are fascists, they're coming for everything, they're trying to take over state-run media, now they're firing Jimmy Kimmel. And, you know, it's sad to me, and I say this a lot, I sound like a broken record, Jim, but I'm constantly telling our listeners and sharing with anybody that's tuned in to please be an informed patriot. That's what Reagan called us to do, and it's what I believe we have to do. We have to know stuff. We have to go to websites like yours, justfacts.com, and know exactly what's going on and take a look at the research you're putting out. We can't simply just listen to the cavalcade of, sadly, left-leaning information that's out there, and thank God for conservatives in talk radio. But I feel like it's not enough. We may be starting to catch up with catching up on social media and other areas. But the reality is, if you turn on any of the broadcast networks and the majority of the cable channels, you're going to hear one side of the story, right? I mean, would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, and it's broader and deeper than that, Rich. The same thing applies to social media, particularly big tech and Google. You know, the first results they typically churn out are from Wikipedia. If you plug in Donald Trump and fascism, the first result is a Wikipedia page that contains many of the hoaxes spread by the left and the media. And then now we have another component, which is AI, which is pulling from Wikipedia and other left-wing sources and amplifying the slanderous, murder-inspiring rhetoric. Now, I thought to myself, hey, you know what, Jim? Maybe you're missing something here. Maybe this is a both sides thing. So what I did is I went to ChatGPT and I asked it the simple question: give me some examples of prominent Republicans or conservatives who spread falsehoods that could inspire people to commit murder by misleading them to believe that their very lives are in danger. And do you know how many legitimate examples it came up with after multiple queries? Zero. Instead, it gave examples like Alex Jones' ridiculous Pizzagate conspiracy thing in Washington, D.C., which, you know, Jones has a big platform, but he is not a prominent conservative or Republican. All right, he's a guy that Ted Cruz and Ben Shapiro have basically called a nutcase, right? This is not equivalent to Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, CBS News, scholars. I also, among these hundreds of examples, Rich, there were many scholars that were making these kind of claims. You had university professors at Yale and George Washington University basically saying, hey, if we don't do something about conservatives, they are going to kill us all. The word is actually used was homicide through global warming. Now, if you're some sort of nut job, okay, yourself, and by the way, this is not to say people with mental illness, all people with mental illness are nut jobs. I'm not saying that. I understand the spectrum of diseases. Most of them are perfectly fine. They're not going to hurt anyone. They suffer. I have the empathy for them. But we have 15 million non-institutionalized, non-homeless people in the United States who admit to having a severe mental illness. When you start feeding this kind of rhetoric on a mass scale, Rich, it's only inevitable that some of those people are going to take it seriously and do something about it because they're afraid for their lives and they're unhinged.
Jim Agresti, that is so spot on. Let me tell you, give me a second here, because I saw something, and this fits perfect. I was watching a video, and it was too long for me to play on the radio. It was like 5 minutes long. But it was a professor, and I don't know what his position was. He seemed like a tenured professor in one of those big lecture halls, so pretty big school, and with a bunch of students that looked, freshman, maybe sophomore, and they were discussing this Charlie Kirk thing. And to his credit, he was just trying to get them to look at things a little deeper. And then there was somebody critiquing this video. And bottom line here, not to belabor the point, but there's a girl and there's a few people in the audience, but there's one girl mainly. She was as if she had been trained in the communications shop of the Democrat National Party. It was every point that he brought up about, somebody losing their life, that Charlie's wife is now a widow, his children are now orphaned, that this was, it was lost on her. She kept coming back with saying, and this is why we need gun control. And they weren't having a debate. They were literally having a conversation. And so many in the audience, and then some of them were a little softer than others, but it made me realize there is a real issue with empathy here. And I'm not saying the left has the exclusive on it, but they definitely are leading the way on it. And it was so sad to watch because I'm 47 years old, and when you tell me people die anywhere, Gaza, anywhere, I feel very bad about hearing about death. Matter of fact, you can talk to the producers behind the scenes when there's a breaking news story about whatever. They killed a little kid. They killed this. They killed that. I half the time won't even talk about it because I just don't want to get into that mood because it's such depressing news. So, when you talk about this, it's so eye-opening that even what I'm going to say is a left-wing professor was struggling with how left-wing, or at least how empty some of these students have become. And their reaction is just, we have to be able to stop this. The girl's biggest fear, listen to this. She said, well, my biggest fear right now, she wasn't afraid of being killed for her opinions. She was afraid that someone might rise to the challenge and become the next Charlie Kirk.
I'm speechless, Rich. I don't.
As was I.
That just doesn't register with me. It's like I'm with you. My heart breaks for people. I have a very strong protective instinct, and I'd like to think I laid down my life for my friends and my enemies.
Yeah, this girl was probably no older than either of my kids, or right in between, maybe 22, and very smart. Well read, I would presume. Maybe she needs to read some more Bible, but it was really heartbreaking to go down that road. Anyway, Jim, I want to wrap things up with you when we come back. Hopefully you can stick around for a few more minutes. Amigos, we're on with Jim Agresti, president of Just Facts. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Jim Agresti, justfacts.com. He's the president there. And Jim, I just wanted you to have a chance to give me your final thoughts on this topic and put a pin in it, and then let everybody know where they go to support your work and keep up to speed and stay educated.
Sure. So one of the things I did at the end of this massive study, by the way, which is available on our fact-checking website at justfactsdaily.com, is when I saw the lopsided nature of how often each side made murder-inspiring slanders, that led me to ask the question, well, what kind of moral frameworks are on the right and left? You mentioned that last time. You mentioned the left. You mentioned the Bible. And to that effect, on the left, Vladimir Lenin gave a speech in 1920 in which he declared that we reject ethics based on God's commandments, and our morality is entirely subordinated to the interest of advancing communism. And by the way, that same philosophy was embraced by Saul Alinsky, the influential leftist who was the topic of Hillary Clinton's 1969 college thesis, in which he said, the ends justify almost any means, and the most unethical of all means is the non-use of any means. On the right, to the contrary, slander is strictly forbidden by the Bible's 9th commandment against giving false testimony against your neighbor. So I just think a lot of the solution to this problem could be in instilling good morals.
A return to virtue.
Yeah.
I'm with it. I'm with it.
Of course, what you're doing and what I'm doing too, naming and shaming the perpetrators, all these things matter. But because of the First Amendment, I don't think the solution lies in government censorship. It's unconstitutional, and I don't think it's going to have a lot of bad concurring effects if we start stifling people. So I think, part of it is just, and another thing you said earlier too, Rich, which is educate yourself. We've got an entire initiative dedicated to that called Just Facts Academy at justfactsacademy.org. If you want to keep abreast of our research, just go to our main website, justfacts.com, plug in your email. We send an email a week, no more than that. We don't share or sell your email, and we'll keep you abreast of everything we're doing.
Outstanding. Jim Agresti, Godspeed to you. JustFacts.com. We'll have you back soon. Keep us up to speed on everything, and God bless, my brother.
Always an honor and a pleasure. Thank you, Richie.
Yes, sir. And before we take the break, I want to go to Eduardo, who's in Tampa, Florida, streaming the show on WLS out of Chicago, because he's a Chicago guy that's exiled to Tampa, Florida. Eduardo, go right ahead, sir.
That's right, Rich, and I'm not going back, although I'm trying to convince my younger brother to move over there. He's still over there in Chicago, Midway.
Maybe we can get him deported to Florida.
Yeah, but I got to bring up this story in light of what's happening with Jimmy Kimmel and Charlie Kirk. This Dearborn mayor, Abdullah Hammoud, so he criticized his resident Ted Barnum because he objected to him renaming the street over there.
Oh, I saw this clip.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah,
very rude.
He even yelled at him when he was singing a Christmas carol. He got really upset at Ted Barnum. He's the Christian that he hates, so they got into a little back and forth. So This is pretty outrageous. So, yeah, Mr. Abdullah Hammoud, he does not take too kindly to people who criticize him.
Let me tell you, I saw that video. You know, it's kind of long also, so I don't know if I could play all. I got to get the right clip to play on the radio. But in effect, the mayor is just very belligerent. He's very angry at a guy who's saying this person was involved or spoke highly of people that bombed, I forget what, some terrorists. And, he took exception to the naming of the street. And I thought that was a legitimate concern. I'm not saying I agreed with it or disagreed with it, but if I were mayor, I'd say, all right, listen, I understand what you're saying. We take these things very seriously. Thank you for sharing, But he didn't. He fought back. He was very sharp with him. And again, this is the same town that just Dearborn, I guess Dearborn is different from Dearborn Heights, but right adjacent to it, where they changed the new optional police patches that are written in Sanskrit, in Arabic, a police patch in Arabic, because of the I guess, Arab makeup of the community. But this is just, it's a first for me, right? I've never seen that before. And I've never seen a mayor, I have seen mayors be rude, but this one, it seemed like rude for a different reason, right? This guy was talking about something rather legitimate, and he wasn't attacking the guy, and the guy was definitely attacking him. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I'm going to see if we can grab that clip and play it for the rest of the audience. Thanks, Eduardo, for giving us a call, and shout out to WLS. And, of course, the rest of your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And I want you to hear the clip we were just talking about with Eduardo. Listen to this. Mayor of Dearborn.
The minister speaks.
Strike them with knives and with their bare hands, and they're victorious. And he also encourages the use of rockets over there.
The best suggestion I have for you is to not drive on Warren Avenue, or to close your eyes while you're doing it. His name is up there. And I, spoke at a ceremony celebrating it because he's done a lot for this community. And although you live here, I want you to know as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city. Because you are not somebody who believes in coexistence. You're somebody who tries to preach it, but in fact you do everything but that.
That, again, is the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan. Telling a minister that was there, again, the mayor, Abdullah H. Hammoud, telling the resident, who is a Christian minister in town, Edward Ted Barham, that he's not welcome in the city. And again, that was a shorter clip where he gets yelled at a little bit more earlier part of the clip. Outrageous. Imagine going to your mayor and the guy saying, I'm going to throw a parade when you get out of town. I mean, I could see it going the other way where the residents say, look, when you're not mayor anymore, we're throwing a party. But, man, I that was a first for me. Anyway, don't go to Dearborn. Amigos, we're coming right back. I'm Rich Valdes. Hasta la próxima. God bless.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdes, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdes.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdes, Valdes with an S, at Rich Valdes on all of the social media. We are back for another hour. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of the program. Happy to be here. It's truly a blessing, and if you want to join the show on our late night national town hall conversation, give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdes. I was just looking at a headline. Listen to this. This is a doozy. The Department of Homeland Security has now reached 2 million illegal aliens that have been deported. And President Trump says, we're going to get those numbers up. Go El Trumpito. Now, I am not doing this in mean spirit. I know because there's a lot of people that are, sort of racist out there. They think that, if a white person said what I just said, that's okay. If a black person says what I just said, that's okay too. But if I say it, it's wrong because those are my people. And I will say, that's racist to think that way, right? Just imagine you told a white person to not want justice to be served on other white people who break the law in some way. Right, and there's some sort of law enforcement action against them. You'd be like, how are you going to turn on them? Those are your people. If you really thought that way, black cops could never pull over black people. White cops could never pull over white people. Hispanic cops could never pull over Hispanic people. It would be a wash every time. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't. You're my people. I can't do anything. I'm sorry. Listen, have a good day. Try to drive safe. Try not to get caught next time. Come on. This type of thinking is farcical. The whole thing is fake, phony, fraud. This is, again, the manipulation of situations, the manipulation of race, the manipulation of people's emotions to try to get people to think a certain way, to act a certain way. And this is truly, I don't know if Karl Marx invented it, but they have perfected it. The Marxists have perfected this, and I see it in action all the time. And I have to give credit where credit's due to everybody who breaks away from the pack, who isn't afraid because, I was never afraid because I kind of existed outside of the pack always. I was just different, right? And it's not a credit to myself. It was just, I didn't notice. I was aloof, right? When they told me when I was a little kid, I remember somebody telling me something about, Democrats are for the poor and Republicans are for the rich. My response was, oh, good. Then I want to be a Republican because I want to be rich. Right? I just saw it differently. And I didn't know anything. I was a little kid. But my point is, people are constantly trying to do that. And when people go against the narrative, then it's like whatever. It's like the black MAGA supporters. Right? Black MAGA supporters, they get all sorts of heat. They're like, how could you be a MAGA supporter? I get it if the white guy is. I can't imagine you are. And this to me is so problematic because, listen, we should, like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, live our lives judging people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. So it should be irrelevant what color you are. It should be relevant how well you do what you do, how you treat people, how you carry yourself. That is what should matter, right? And I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. I know you guys know this, but it blows me away. And in the same way they do it with political ideology, right? Jimmy Kimmel now. Jimmy Kimmel gets on television and says that the MAGA people are trying to, lie to you or trying to bamboozle people by saying that the MAGA person, that the shooter of Charlie Kirk, this assassin, is actually a MAGA person. and that we're working overtime to try and make him out to be something other than he is. And that's got to be the craziest thing ever, because we're just trying to follow the information that's available. Anyway, I want you to listen to Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel was on the television last night, and this is what got him into that hot water. Listen to this.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes.
And he goes on to talk about this, the building of the construction, whatever. And I get it. Trump's trying to change the subject because he doesn't want to stay on this. Nobody wants to say, hey, how you doing? Your mom just passed away. Your friend just passed away. For some people, that evokes a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling. But instead, it's like, the media is just, asking these questions. And that's fine if they ask. Trump answered, and they move on. So ultimately, I think that Jimmy Kimmel got himself into something, and now he's trying to get himself out. So I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about a couple of other things as well. But I also want to talk to you about something I've been talking about that I think is important. And a lot of people, my friends, I'm sure your friends, I'm sure your phone rings in the middle of the day, right? Your phone just rings and there's nobody there and just hangs up. Right? Or you get some funny sound like bloop, right? I'm sure this has happened to you. All sorts of calls are coming in, and right? I don't know the purpose of all these calls. I don't know if they're trying to triangulate your location, if it's the deep state, if they're trying to sell you life insurance or Medicare, or all sorts of things that they try to sell you, right? But I do know that they get your phone number every time you fill out a form for something, because websites nowadays, they take all sorts of information and they go ahead and sell your information, and then everybody buys your information, and it's all over the place. So how do you protect yourself when you're living this digital life, right? We do so many things digitally and we don't know how to protect ourselves. Well, for me, to live a digital life that's a little bit better, especially in the wake of the news of these major credit reporting agencies that have data breaches all the time, the last one affected more than 4 million people, it's important to have products like WebRoot. Now, WebRoot has one called the Total Protection Plan. Their Total Protection Plan, it includes antivirus protection against emerging threats like malware, ransomware, and phishing, all sorts of scams. Plus, it gives you identity protection for up to 10 identities. That means you and your family. Plus, you get VPN and cloud backup. So this plan also gives you up to $1 million in fraud expense reimbursement. So if there's fraud, they'll reimburse you up to $1 million. That's a solid plan. Plus, you get 24/7 U.S.-based customer support and a dedicated elder fraud hotline. And that's who they try to go after first, right? The senior citizens in our family. Plus, one more plus, right? There's a lot of stuff here. You get identity monitoring and dark web monitoring. So I don't know what you're waiting for, but if you want to live a better digital life, you got to go to the website. It's webroot.com/rich. If you go right now, during this break, you're going to get 50% off the WebRoot Total Protection Package, or you can get the WebRoot Essentials Package. Just go to webroot.com/rich. That's WebRoot, WebRoot.com/rich.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Familia, we continue the conversation. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. I'm going to get to your calls momentarily. I see calls on hold from Montreal, Canada, Charleston, South Carolina, Boise, Idaho, Albany, New York, and more. But first, I want to get into something that Commissioner Brendan Carr said on the Fox News channel with our friend Sean Hannity, where he explained the requirements that broadcasters have, broadcast networks, with their FCC licenses and exactly what's at stake here. Listen to this.
Have a license granted by us at the FCC, and what comes with it is an obligation to operate in the public interest. From my perspective, it's frankly amazing a show lasted this long. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr is here now with the latest. Sir, welcome to the program. Can you explain that difference, go into more detail?
Yeah, broadcasters are different than any other form of communication, including here. We're on cable right now. Fox News doesn't have an FCC license. CNN doesn't. But ABC, CBS, NBC, those broadcast stations do. And with that license comes a unique obligation to operate in the public interest. And over the years, the FCC walked away from enforcing that public interest obligation. I don't think we're better off as a country for it. But look, President Trump ran directly at these legacy broadcast outlets, and he exposed them to these market forces. And a lot of these affiliate groups said, to your point, we're tired of carrying this stuff. Late night shows, something's gone seriously awry there. They went from going for applause, from laugh lines to applause lines. They went from being court jesters that would make fun of everybody in power to being court clerics and enforcing a very narrow political ideology. And Nexstar, as you noted, stood up and said, look, we have the license, and we don't want to run this anymore. We don't think it serves the interests of our community. Sinclair did the same thing. So there's more work to go, but I'm very glad to see that America's broadcasters are standing up to serve the interests of their community. We don't just have this progressive foie gras coming out from New York and Hollywood.
That's Commissioner Brendan Carr from the Federal Communications Commission. Now, I want to get into this because I think there's a big misconception going on in the media or in the world, right, in America, where people are thinking that somehow the government is cracking down and we're being fascistic here and stopping the speech, right? And I say we because they think conservatives that are in government are doing this. And it's the left claiming this, saying that Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he made fun of President Trump. Jimmy Kimmel was let go because of whatever. Now he can't work anywhere. He's this, that, and all of these things are fake, phony, and fraud. And I want to get some perspective from somebody else who observes these things just like I do. And he's a former New Yorker. He's out in Tennessee now. He's got a great podcast in the mornings. You got to check it out. It's called Ungoverned with Shawn Farash. And he's got a unique take on this because he's also a comedian and he's an impressionist. And you've heard him, doing his impression of President Trump, but he's also a really smart guy that has a really great take on a lot of issues. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me, Rich. Always a pleasure to be on with you.
Thank you. So talk to me about this because I think this is an interesting moment for us as a country. I think it's also an interesting spot to be in for these late night hosts that I think you see Colbert. He got axed because of financial issues. Some say same thing. They were afraid that we now have a new FCC sheriff in town that might actually enforce the rules that actually exist. And same thing you're seeing here with Nexstar and with Sinclair. Your thoughts?
Well, I think the only person who got Jimmy Kimmel fired was Jimmy Kimmel. He chose to behave a certain way, and two of his network's largest affiliates decided that his conduct was reprehensible, and so they levied pressure on the network to rectify that, and the network decided Jimmy Kimmel's not worth the headache. They decided he's not worth fighting for, and that might be the first thing that Disney and ABC has done right in, over a decade. This is what I like to call consequence culture. It's not cancel culture, it's consequence culture. There are consequences for your actions, okay? Everything that you do in public, you might as well expect it to be being recorded and watched, and not everybody watching is somebody who likes you, right? So you better be the best reflection of yourself and or the best reflection of your employer, or else there could be consequences. And in this case, there were consequences for Jimmy Kimmel. There were consequences for many of these other employees that we saw last week. And I'm not saying that people should be, trying to go out of their way to do this. But if you see somebody acting, abhorrently, let's say, celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, a 31-year-old man, a father, a husband, a brother, a son, an American patriot, a peaceful man, a godly man. If you see somebody celebrating that and you happen to know that they're a teacher in a public school, well, you can make the case that it is within the public's best interest to expose that and to let the school know about that, because that person is teaching children. If you know that somebody's a doctor and they're celebrating the assassination of somebody, how could you be comfortable with that person having someone else's life in their hands, an EMS worker, et cetera? So, this is called consequence culture. These people were not forced to make these comments. They were not forced to behave in this way, and they have nobody to blame but themselves, Jimmy Kimmel included.
Yeah, really well put, Shawn Farash. And, I feel the left is trying to create this narrative that this is somehow about government censorship of his free speech. What do you say to that?
Well, the government didn't censor him. The government never even asked for him to be fired, right? The FCC never asked ABC to fire Jimmy Kimmel. The affiliates did, right? Number two, the First Amendment protects your right to speak and do it peacefully and speak freely, and it restricts the government from criminalizing protected speech, right? The government cannot criminalize your protected speech. So long as it's not insightful and so long as it's not defamatory in nature, constituting actual malice, the government cannot criminalize your speech, period. The First Amendment does not guarantee Jimmy Kimmel's right to broadcast on ABC, okay? That is ABC's right. They're the ones who determine who gets to broadcast on their airwaves. The First Amendment protects Jimmy Kimmel's right to speak. He can still speak. He has not been silenced.
In the public square.
He has a phone. Yeah, he has a phone. He can go on social media. He can start a podcast. He can do anything that he'd like. He just may not be doing that on ABC anymore because they decided enough is enough. The government didn't get him fired. Again, Jimmy Kimmel got himself fired. And number two, they're not cracking down on his speech. They're not cracking down on him. They're not criminalizing him, his speech. They're not dragging him in jail. They didn't even ask for him to be fired. It's just the craziest argument I've ever seen. And Jimmy Kimmel is a perfectly able-bodied human being. If he's that valuable, Rich, he can go get a job at another network if he's that good at what he does.
Right. And Shawn Farash, I just want to point out, Jimmy Kimmel wasn't fired. He's going to keep getting paid. He's just not going to be on TV.
Right. That's a good point. So, I mean, he essentially got some time off and he's still getting paid for it. But again, if there are folks who are saying the government is silencing, nobody's silenced here. Nobody. Jimmy Kimmel is allowed to speak, and he can do so if he wants to. He's got a phone. He can do it.
It's so interesting about this. And again, there may be some contractual things that stop him from doing that. But again, that's not the government's job either. That's his own contract. But it's so interesting to see how the left is up in arms about this now. But when it was other hosts at Fox or other networks, when they were pulled off the air, they were celebrated, right? They were super, including Jimmy Kimmel. He was happy to see Carlson go. AOC was happy to see Carlson go. So it's just interesting how, when the shoe's on the other foot, how people react. Shawn Farash, stick with me. We're going to come right back and get a little bit more reaction on the media and the reaction to everything that's going on in the last couple of days. Folks, we're coming right back with Shawn Farash. I'm Rich Valdes.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Tell us what you think about what happened last night to Jimmy Kimmel.
Well, this is misery. And in the world of somebody who is an authoritarian, maybe a dictatorship, sooner or later, everyone is going to be touched. But this is me. For 30 years, I did this for a living. So I see this happen. They took care of Colbert. That was rude. That was inexcusable. The man deserves a great deal of credit. He's in the Hall of Fame 9 times. And to be manipulated like that because because the Ellison family didn't want to trouble Donald Trump with this move, so they got rid of him. Not only got rid of him, got rid of the whole franchise. You're not going to have to worry about anything, Larry. It's all gone. It's fine. Good night. And then my good friend Jimmy Kimmel. I feel bad about this because we all see where this is going, correct? It's managed media, and it's no good. It's silly. It's ridiculous, and you can't go around firing somebody because you're fearful or trying to suck up to an authoritarian criminal administration in the Oval Office. That's just not how this works.
That is David Letterman speaking at the Atlantic Festival, calling Trump an authoritarian dictator criminal because of Jimmy Kimmel being taken off the air. Mind you, he's not fired. He's going to get paid. He's a contract. He's got to get paid until they break the contract. And guess what happens? Remember Megyn Kelly? Love Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly, they did the same thing to her. They said that she did something in blackface, whatever. $69 million they had to give her because they had to pay out her contract. So that's what these contracts do, right? They protect you from these types of things, which is why the networks protect you, right? They say, no, this is our guy. He could say what he wants because we've got too much money riding on this. But in this situation, it became about the dollars and cents. So I want to bring back Shawn Farash. Shawn Farash is a comedian. He's an impressionist. He is a podcast host of Ungoverned on LFA TV. You can catch that on Rumble in the morning time. And Shawn Farash, I want you to listen to a clip of Shermichael Singleton. Now, he is one of the left of center commentators that I usually see with Abby Phillip on CNN. And listen to him weigh in on this. Check this out.
Well, first of all, I thought Kimmel's comments were just stupid. I mean, obviously, based on the evidence that we have heard thus far from the investigators and prosecutor who is currently in charge of the case, it certainly appears, and I want to use the word appears, that this guy was certainly someone who had an ideology that I would argue, if you were looking at a political spectrum, is on the left of that political spectrum versus being on the right, number one. That said, I think Disney is looking at their bottom line. I mean, Disney has faced several tough cycles where they have had some serious financial issues. And when you have Nexstar and Sinclair, those two entities combined cover 80% of the local television market in this country. If those two conglomerates are saying we're not going to carry this show because it's not in sync with our values as corporations, or we've heard some anger from some of our individuals who watch in our various stations, or as Bill stated, you have business before the federal government that you would like to move forward. And by the way, those companies have a fiduciary responsibility to grow and expand those companies for their investors, and they're canceling. Then ABC had no choice but to say, you know what? If we don't cancel this, then you run the risk of conservatives saying we're canceling Disney Plus. We're not going to Disney World or Disneyland. We're going to no longer purchase anything that fits under the Disney umbrella. That becomes a very serious question if you're Bob Iger running this company that has had serious financial issues for at least 6 or 8 quarters now. That's the last thing you want. You're going to go ahead and say, you know what, this isn't worth it for us from a company's perspective. Cancel it, and we just keep moving.
Now, Shawn Farash, Shermichael Singleton's certainly not a right winger by any means. He gets it perfectly. This was going to cost them more than the loss that they would face, right? That of getting this man off the air. It was a dollars and cents decision. It was a smart political decision, if you ask me. It was a smart business decision because they did the math and they realized he said it best. Imagine if conservatives don't go to Disney. Imagine if the left doesn't go to Disney. How many people on the left, even have kids? They preach not having kids. Everybody on the right is having kids. So to me, I'm thinking Disney's all about the kids. They want the kids. They have to keep conservatives happy. That's where I argue. What say you, Shawn Farash?
Yeah, I mean, it's an astute observation, right? That there's a certain segment of the population that really does like the idea of having children, a certain segment of the population that likes aborting pregnancies, right? So, there's that, and there's also the idea, again, what Mr. Singleton said. He mentioned that Jimmy Kimmel's comments were stupid, right? Again,
right on the money.
Jimmy Kimmel did this to himself. Had he behaved like a decent person, which is, I know, a tough ask for Jimmy Kimmel, but had he behaved like a decent human being, There's no controversy surrounding him. There's no impetus for suspending him or canceling him or taking him off the air or anything. This all comes back to the actions of Jimmy Kimmel. Had he not made that mistake, and I get it, people make mistakes, nobody's perfect, but your actions have consequences. And the other part about this that's great, again, is that if Kimmel gets released or fired or whatever from ABC, and he's truly that talented, he'll find a job somewhere else, right? I mean, look at what Michael Vick did in the NFL. A guy killed dogs, right? Winds up out of jail, gets a job because he still had the talent. Now we'll be finding out whether Jimmy Kimmel is actually somebody who can hold his weight, carry his weight, or hold his water. And in this industry, we'll just have to see. But again, this all comes down to consequences, and these are the consequences for Jimmy Kimmel's actions.
Really well put. Now, Shawn Farash, I want to switch gears a little bit from Jimmy Kimmel to just overall the reaction to Charlie Kirk from the media at large. You had Caitlin Collins and so many others, CNN, just arguing, pushing back, saying, look, we don't know what the motive is. We don't know this. And again, I'm going to be the first one to say, I think it's safe to make the inference, right, that if you have a situation where someone who is a political activist, an apologist for the Christian faith, someone who is a campus organizer, a gigantic figure in the conservative movement, in Charlie Kirk, if you have an individual like this, and this individual is murdered, which he was, assassinated, broad daylight, the way that it happened, I think it's safe to say they were trying to stop this person. I don't think it was a personal beef. It was, we don't like what you're doing. We don't like the effect you're having. Do you think I'm presuming too much in motive?
No, I think you're spot on. As a matter of fact, when you look at just that aspect alone, yeah, you would be safe to say that that's probably the motive. But take a look at the bullet casings. Take a look at who he was living with. Take a look at what they were saying, what the parents said about his ideology.
Right,
again, his own family, the text messages that he had between himself and his boyfriend saying that, Charlie Kirk was so full of evil and full of hate, and it's not the type of thing that can be negotiated away, right? These are the things that he himself said. These are not right-wing talking points, okay? These are not conservative MAGA talking points. I don't know anybody on the MAGA side of the aisle, and I know a lot of MAGA people who have ever sat there and said, there's too much evil, I just have to go out there and assassinate somebody. Never have I heard that. We're nonviolent. Charlie Kirk was nonviolent. And, you saw where this guy was politically in terms of what his ideology appears to have been based off the evidence that's been made available. It's nowhere near the right. It's all on the left. And this is the type of stuff that they're teaching in schools. Everyone who doesn't agree with you is a fascist. Republicans are racist. Whites are bad, et cetera, et cetera. This is a culmination of all that. And I'm not surprised that it happened, but it's tragic and it's totally preventable.
Where do you think we go? Do you think that this is the pardon the pun, but is this the tipping point or the turning point for America where we say, you know what, we've gone too far with heated rhetoric and we're going to dial it back? Or is this where we dial it up a few notches and make it even hotter?
Well, I hope it doesn't get any hotter because I don't like seeing people harmed, hurt, killed, afraid. I don't like that. I hope this is the moment, the turning point that Americans can look at and say, okay, you know what? All this vitriol, all this venom coming from the left, it's not helping anybody. I think the fact that Sinclair and Nexstar, the two largest affiliates of ABC, are going to be running Charlie Kirk tributes this weekend is great because that's going to be hitting audiences that wouldn't normally see how honorable and how good of a person Charlie Kirk actually was, the impact that he had. Hopefully they don't
distort the facts.
Hopefully they don't distort the facts. So I think ultimately, though, this could serve as a turning point, but we have to be the ones that enforce that, right? We have to be the ones that make that happen and carry Charlie Kirk's torch forward.
Shawn Farash, I appreciate you being here. And before I let you go, give the audience here about a minute, because I've seen you come up from being a very young organizer in Long Island, New York, organizing caravans during COVID and during the Trump re-election and all of that to just, this platform that you've amassed for yourself. And, you're a media superstar now. So how does a kid from Long Island end up where you are in Tennessee and just killing the game?
Well, the first thing is I think God has been very good to us. To me, I found an amazing wife. So I would say that's number one. I guess that's where the glory goes. But you got to work hard, right? You work hard and just don't stop. So we thank God for all of our blessings, but we also, we're also working hard every single day. It's sometimes a rough schedule, but it's all worth it.
Yeah, amen. Right? Success doesn't grow on trees, brother. I hear that.
That's right.
Shawn Farash,
That's right.
Ungoverned on LFA TV. Check him out. Give everybody your social media handle so they could follow you.
It's the best place is over on X. We have a lot of fun there at SHAWN_FARASH.
Outstanding, brother. I'm proud of you. Godspeed to you, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you.
You bet. Amigos, your calls are coming up right now. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago. So, you can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent.
That, of course, President Trump weighing in on Jimmy Kimmel, and I want to get your thoughts and reactions to Jimmy Kimmel's show being taken off the air. Is this an attack on free speech, or does he still have his free speech, just not there at that job? Let's go to Matt, Winchester, Virginia, WMAL. Go right ahead, sir.
Hey, Rich. So take a look at a business perspective. If you are a manufacturer of any product that you sell, so let's just say happens to be 250 stores around the country, this affiliates, and you anger for something so stupid and and unapologetic, think about it, and you piss off 26% of your resellers, would that manager or VP get fired from every single business where he did something that monumentally stupid to piss off 1 out of 4 of the customers that resell your product?
I'd say it's highly likely in most scenarios. In a situation like Jimmy Kimmel's, like mine, like any other person I think that works in broadcast, I think it would really come down to where do we lose the most money? And when they look at that, then they say, all right, it makes sense. Because Kimmel's going to be able to sue them for his contract if they don't pay it out. So, whatever that amount is, you got to figure out which is the one that's going to cost us the most. And I think they made that decision pretty quickly. They have too many other business units, too many other areas where there's exposure. And they said, you know what, this just doesn't make financial sense. We're going to go with fighting with Kimmel rather than fighting with the FCC and with conservatives across the country boycotting us. And I think it made the right sense. But I get your point. Yeah, in most jobs, you're going to lose your job right away if you lose that much money and make that type of decision. So I'm with you, brother. Thank you, Matt, for your call. I appreciate it. Winchester, Virginia, WMAL. Thank you for dialing in tonight. And let's keep it moving. I want to, before we have to pause here, I want to go to Jerome. Jerome's in Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Jerome, go right ahead.
Hey, Richie Rich, actions have consequences, right? You got January 6th, and then on top of that, you got Trump saying he can stand on the street corner and shoot someone, and he wouldn't lose any support. Actions have consequences, Rich. What consequences?
Yeah, I'm not following the logic here, but I'm guessing you're saying that Trump and the January 6ers are violent, bad people, and that we somehow caused something? Is that what you're trying to convey to me?
3 hours hours, he said he could stand on a street corner and shoot someone and suffer no consequences, not lose any support. Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that Jimmy Kimmel doesn't have the level of support that Trump has.
Oh, you mean he doesn't have the level of sycophants that Trump has? That's what you mean,
However
right?
you want to phrase it. I think Trump is a smart guy, and when he makes a hypothetical about I could shoot somebody in the middle of Times Square and people wouldn't, he's making there was no person killed. He's making an objective statement. When Jimmy Kimmel's talking about a man that was literally assassinated days earlier and says that we're trying to cover it up, the MAGA people are trying to say that it wasn't their own when the facts are indicating otherwise. I mean, you tell me, how is that comparable?
Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert have never in their entire life of living on this planet ever made a comment like that about Trump saying he can stand on a street corner and shoot someone and not lose any support. I dare you to find audio of them ever saying
I'm not
anything
saying
like
they did
that,
either.
especially in light of what happened. Especially in light of what's happened over the last
I'm saying
weeks
that
in this
Jimmy
country.
Kimmel made a comment about the murderer of Charlie Kirk and saying that they're trying to whitewash this investigation and say he's something that he's not, when this wasn't factual. This isn't like an opinion that he had. He was making stuff up. It's contrary to the facts. And this got him into hot water. He didn't get in trouble because of what I said. He didn't get in trouble because of what you said. And he didn't get in trouble because of what Trump said. He got in trouble because of what he said, Jerome.
You don't find what Trump said about shooting someone, you don't find that reprehensible or abhorrent in any way, shape, or form, do you?
No, because it was a hypothetical. If I said something like that, like, if I go in and shoot somebody, there is no somebody. I've never shot anybody. And it wasn't like I'm saying it now. If I said that now, somebody would say, you know what, Rich, you're a little tone deaf because Charlie Kirk was just shot gruesomely. But when Trump said that, nobody had been shot. He was just making a point about having solid support and faithful supporters. You just don't like the guy, so clearly you're like, this guy's abhorrent and reprehensible. And look, and I support your right to say it. Trump hears this program. He's been on this program. I'm sure people that in the White House are listening to this, and I'm going to let you say what you got to say. Why? Because I respect free speech. You got free speech here, Jerome. God bless you, my brother. Amigos, we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue with your calls. Let's go to Albany, New York. WGDJ. Bill, go right ahead.
Yes, I'm calling in reference, to the fact that Democratic Party. Now, you take, for instance, those who forget the history are doomed to repeat it, and you can make cases like Moses and the Egyptians, for the Colorado and the Egyptians.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
And it's like Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan both were shot and lived. Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy were shot and died. And Joe Biden and Joe Wilson, their wives were running the government. Now,
Let me tell you, things have been ugly through history, Bill, and I'm hopeful that they're going to be brighter in the future. Thanks for your call. Godspeed to you, my brother. WGDJ in the building. Folks, we're going to get to the rest of your calls and more. Speed round. Get straight to the point so you don't run out of time. 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdes. Don't go anywhere. The third hour is coming up.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdes. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdes.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdes, Valdes with an S, at Rich Valdes on all of the social media, back with you for another hour this Thursday evening. We're live and national, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDES. And, of course, the fallout over Jimmy Kimmel continues. President Trump was in the UK the last couple of days doing all sorts of things. Today, what's his name? I was going to say King Charles, but it wasn't King Charles. By the way, editorial note, yesterday I said they were in Buckingham Palace. They were in Windsor Castle. I kept saying Kensington Palace, Buckingham Palace. No, they were at Windsor Castle. So forgive me on that one. And President Trump yesterday meeting with formerly Prince Charles, now King Charles, and Prince Andrew. Is that his name? Prince Andrew? Prince William. I don't know any of these guys. Forgive me. Will and Kate and whatnot, and a lot going on. A lot of interesting speeches and toasts were given there. They were having a spot of tea. You see. But today he met with Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and they discussed this deal. All right, the deal that they discussed was. Well, I've got the audio on it. Let me see which number this is, so I can play you the right clip. Go right ahead on the deal.
You are among friends, and I think we all agree there's so much to celebrate in the special relationship between our two countries. By standing together in war and in peace, this bond is the very foundation of our security, our freedom, and our prosperity. But what is the relationship all about when it comes down to brass tacks? It comes down to leaders, of course, leaders who respect each other, leaders who genuinely like each other.
Today we're making those ties closer than ever before. We've done some things that financially are great for both countries, and we work together, and it keeps us together, and I think it's an unbreakable bond we have. Regardless of what we're doing today, I think it's unbreakable. So we're taking the next logical step with a historic agreement on science and technology partnerships, and this will create new government, academic, and private sector cooperation in areas such as AI, which is taking over the world. I'm looking at you guys. You're taking over the world, Jensen. I don't know what you're doing here. I hope you're right. All I can say is we both hope you're right.
And that, of course, El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th and 47th president of these United States, with the English Prime Minister Keir Starmer talking about the big tech deal. And they signed a $350 billion tech deal to spur AI, artificial intelligence, nuclear energy, and quantum computing. Now, that's a big deal because quantum computing is going to be, from what I understand, the bedrock of our financial system moving forward. So putting everything in place, you're going to have AI managing certain things. People are going to be able to make a lot more money a lot faster with this type of technology in place. And the two leaders announcing this technology prosperity deal in a press conference at Chequers, the county manor of the British Prime Minister in Buckinghamshire, northwest London, you see, claiming that the win for both sides could create up to 17,500 new jobs across both nations. Across the pond, nearly 18,000 new jobs. And this trip galvanized, this is a quote from Trump, this trip has galvanized $350 billion in deals across many sectors, and we're committed to ensuring that the UK is as secure and reliable with their supply with the best AI, hardware, and software on Earth. And we supply and make sure that we'll supply it in quantity to the UK. That's, again, President Trump making this big deal here. And, you know, what I want to point out here, Trump is making deals everywhere he goes. He's been very active, running around the globe, meeting with world leaders, making deals, right? Building, is repairing relationships, solidifying relationships. And these are not linear, right? This is not like me and my buddies that I've known since 6th grade that I go to lunch with all the time. It's not like that at all. These are people that you got Trump saying, hey, listen, let's make a deal. Let's make some money together. And then they say, well, in the past we've dealt with, other presidents and they were kind of shady and I'm not sure. And he's got to win them over. And then he wins them over. And then they catch a little wreck with Israel, right? That's what's happening with Qatar. He makes a big deal with Qatar. And then the Qataris are like, we hate the Israelis. And, we're going to fund this and we're going to fund that. And these are sloppy sometimes, right? It gets messy. Now, I'm not saying Trump is sloppy. I'm saying just the nature of these relationships. Diplomacy isn't always clean. People get their hands dirty. And you got to give it to Trump. I think his foreign policy is spot on. He's all about peace. He's all about pulling the plug on foreign conflicts, even ones he's not involved in, right? He's interjected himself. Why? For many reasons. Peace behooves us. We're all going to make more money with peace. Right, especially the deals that he made in Africa to stop some of that beef over there. Listen, squash the beef. It's good for everybody. Right, there's a lot of rare earth minerals there. Clearly, if everybody's talking about rare earth minerals and others, then we're going to need them moving forward. So let's make the deals with the people that have them. We want to deal with our friends first, and of course, we'll deal with our foes later. Hopefully, they won't be foes much longer. I love Trump's approach. I really do. He's really always looking to make a deal. Even the people that are supposed to be dire enemies, right? Staunch adversaries. He always says the same thing. And I think it's the right thing to say. These are very smart people. I have a lot of respect for them. The media will beat him up and trash him and say, oh, he doesn't. But he's doing the right thing. He's keeping them in a place where we can do a deal later, right? Maybe today's not the day for the deal. But there's times where he has to push back, like he does when he starts calling President Putin Vladimir, right? That's like when your mom calls you by your full name, you're about to get that chancletazo, right? The big slipper. I don't know if you guys grew up with the slipper or the belt, but very, very common in most Hispanic households, I'll say. And anyway, got to give El Trompito and of course his team, right? Secretary of State Rubio and the people working with Rubio, like Witkoff, I think he's an ambassador now, but Special Envoy Witkoff, and so many others that go into this stuff. Dr. Monica Crowley, a lot of people that are involved in the I'm going to say the foreign affairs apparatus of the White House, and everybody doing what they need to do to keep the peace, and make deals. So kudos to El Trompito. Now, I want to talk about deals, but more from our perspective, the personal perspective, because the essence of making a deal, and of course, Trump wrote a book called The Art of the Deal, and there's many books on deal making, but there's a book called The Preparation, How to Become Competent, Confident, and Dangerous. And I liked the idea of this because people, whether you're making investments or whether you're growing your own business or you are just trying to step out of the box in your own life, the skill set that you need to be able to move forward, I think is kind of constant, right? It's a constant amongst all of those situations where you just need to keep doing what you got to do. So we're going to talk about that because this book kind of lays out a cycle. And we're going to learn about this cycle because each cycle kind of pushes the reader into a new world, right? A new version of the real world. So whatever it may be. And there's a bunch of examples there. And I'm going to let the author get into that when we come back. We're coming right back with Doug Casey. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Rich Valdes, who, again, will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's Rich Valdes keeping you company tonight. We're live and national. Feel free to give me a call. We've probably got about another 40 minutes or so of calls, 833-482-5337. But right now, as promised, I want to get back to talking about this investor that wrote a book. And the book is on crisis investing, as well as really preparing yourself to become competent, confident, and dangerous. The book is called The Preparation. The author is Doug Casey. Welcome, sir.
Pleasure to be here with you, Rich. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. And I want to talk about this because you talk about a number of things in the book and how, the focus here is on preparation. And a lot of people, look at school as a waste. The late Charlie Kirk was on this program talking about college as being a scam. You've called it worse than a waste or worth less than zero. Talk to us about your opinion on why college is nothing more than toxic indoctrination.
Well, college has changed a lot over the years. Once upon a time, people viewed it as a path to success. It gave you the certainty of a job and moving out of whatever class you're in to a higher one. But it's been taken over by ultra-leftists, by Marxists, by wokesters. The professors, and I speak as an ex-trustee of a college myself. I actually saw this in person. Kids today go to college and they spend a gigantic amount of money to sit in class and be indoctrinated by professors. Now, we can accept from that STEM courses, science, technology, engineering, math. Usually that's serious students, and the professors stick to the topics, but most people don't go for STEM. They go for a Bachelor of Arts, very soft. Everybody graduates, and a college degree is worth nothing today. In fact, at my shop, if somebody has even a college degree, I ask them why. Why did you spend the best 4 years of your life and scores of thousands of dollars to get a piece of paper? Because you didn't learn anything. You're not qualified for much more than you were when you graduated from high school. So this book, The Preparation, is the book I wish I had when I was in high school. I went to college. I wish I didn't.
What's some of what you're recommending to people to do in lieu of going to college?
Well, education is something that you do for yourself. You can't rely on an institution to magically educate you. So the course of the preparation, I think, ensures that you both have much more school-type knowledge than you would if you went to college. I think that by taking our preparation, you both get a Bachelor of Arts degree, in effect, English, history, things of that nature, Bachelor of Science degree, chemistry, physics, things like that, and an MBA, or the skills that you'd pick up in an MBA, which is a grad course that normally takes another $100,000 in 2 years. So we cover that. But the essence of this program is to actually do things in the real world. So we divide the 4 years that you would go to college into 16 quarters. And the centerpiece of each of these quarters, in addition to the academics that we lay out, this can all be done online. It's foolish to listen to a professor talk, because half the time kids fall asleep or their mind wanders or your notes are no good. So it's better to have a top professor put on a command performance for the subject. But that's the academic part. What makes the preparation different is doing things. By the time you finish these 16 quarters, you'll have far more experience in the real world and many more skills than most people acquire in a lifetime. I'll give you an example. You might start out learning to be an EMT, an emergency medical technician. My co-author's son, Maxim is his name, did an EMT course, which qualified him then to be the EMT for firefighting teams out west. He was earning $600 as an 18-year-old, $600 a day with no other expenses. So his earnings all went to the bottom line to be used to finance further things in the preparation. From there, well, the sky's the limit. We suggest you go to a school in Florida and learn to drive heavy equipment, backhoes, bulldozers.
So it seems like there's an emphasis on blue collar work. What about people that want to be a modern day Renaissance man?
Well, that is actually the essence of this book. It's a Renaissance man is somebody who's capable of doing almost anything and going almost anywhere with the skills and the knowledge that he has. So that comprehends blue-collar things as well as white-collar things. So, for instance, we'd have you going to Thailand, and part of the preparation is to travel a great deal internationally.
So there's an online component and a travel component. That's good to know. For in the sake of time, Doug Casey, I want you to make sure you let everybody know how they can actually get a copy of the book and learn more about the program. Where do they go?
Amazon. Everything is on Amazon today. So it's very simple just to go on Amazon and score a copy. And
let me give everybody the website one more time. The book is called The Preparation, How to Become Competent, Confident, and Dangerous. The website is thepreparation.com. Of course, you can go to Amazon as well. And this is an interesting route, right? You know, not one that I would say is for everyone, but definitely one that's probably better suited for people that are going into the liberal arts and going to get into a massive amount of debt and not be able to do a whole lot as far as money making with the degree they get. Not to mention that there is a real factor, a reality of left-wing indoctrination in so many colleges these days. Doug Casey, I want to thank you for being here. I really appreciate your insight on this. Best of luck with the book and Godspeed, sir.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And amigos, if you miss any portion of the show, any of the interviews we've done, make sure you go to richvaldes.com. You can check out every interview we've done there. They're all there. You can play it right off the website without having to download anything. Absolutely free. You don't have to pay anything. And if you are so inclined to get notified when a new podcast edition of this program is available, which is usually about an hour after we wrap up on the air, just go right to richvaldes.com, pick your podcast platform, and subscribe to the podcast. Put the notifications on, and you'll know every time there's a new episode available. All right, amigos, your calls are coming up. Open Phone America starts when we return. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDES. Keep it locked right here. Don't touch that dial. I'm Rich Valdes.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America. And you sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S.
Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, said that the bigger the lie, the faster it will spread. Well, somebody has fabricated a monstrous big lie that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's horrific murder. This is insane. It is false. It is outrageous. Charlie Kirk was a giant, a once-in-a-century talent who defended freedom, defended America, defended our common Judeo-Christian civilization. Charlie loved Israel. He loved the Jewish people. He told me so in a letter that he sent me just a few months ago. One of my greatest joys as a Christian, he said, is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews to protect Judeo-Christian civilization. He encouraged me to make the case directly to the American people about how vital Israel is to U.S. national security. He told me, the Holy Land is so important to my life, it pains me to see support for Israel slip away. Now, if Charlie disagreed with a policy of mine or a decision here and there, not only did I not mind, I welcomed it.
That's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and talking about the crazy ideas that are all over the internet right now. And I know it's easy to fall into these rabbit holes, but they just don't make sense, in my opinion. Right? There's a lot of people saying that Israel, that the Mossad was somehow responsible for this. I think that's, just doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Kirk asked a couple of questions, but he was very largely behind Israel. It wasn't like he was some others that are right of center that are very critical of Israel. He wasn't one of those. And they're alive, right? I'm not calling for any harm to be brought to them, but I'm just saying there's a lot larger critics of Israel on the right than Charlie Kirk ever was. And so if that's the going theory, I think it's not a good one. Let alone we have a guy that's in custody that has not at all said, hey, it's not me. They got the wrong guy. He's not saying that. In fact, his whole family's in on it saying, yeah, no, it was him. It was him. Yeah, I'm sorry. His family turned him in. We can't lose sight of the facts that are actually there, right? As crazy as things may be. And this is a crazy thing, right? I'll be honest with you. I woke up today and I was like, am I going to talk about Charlie Kirk again? And not because I don't want to talk about Charlie Kirk, because I'm in that stage of grieving where I don't believe it's real. That incredulity stage. And it's a lot. It's a lot. You start thinking, you're like, this whole thing is not a simulation. This whole thing is real, and it's very unfortunate. And what's more unfortunate is people, for the sake of clickbait, people for the sake of web traffic, whatever the reason being. I saw one. I didn't share it because I didn't want to get misunderstood. But there was a guy who said, "Listen, this is your daily reminder that when anything goes wrong, banks make a mistake, there's a problem in the markets, there's a shooting, there's anything at all, this is your reminder to blame the Jews." And sadly, there's a bunch of people out there, the Nazi movement's alive and well. They hate the Jews. Anything they can do to make people despise Jews, they do it. And they are effective, sadly. That's why anti-Semitism is a real thing. People hate Jews. And unfairly and I would say hatefully, it's wrong. But it's a reality. And it doesn't surprise me as much as it does upset me that you had to have the prime minister actually make a comment about this. But I played it because it just shows you the state of affairs that we're in, where heads of state actually, Netanyahu's always been the kind of guy to tackle things head on. But the fact that this is so prevalent, and everybody's a detective and everybody's a former military person. I used to be a sniper. I used to be a spotter. Listen, it's all great information. I watch it, but it doesn't mean it's all accurate. And you can only go with so much. I mean, for me, I like to use my own mind as much as I know, ask some of the people I know, maybe some of the guests I bring on, get their opinion on every topic. One thing I can't do is be moved by somebody who sounds convincing in a social media video. That doesn't work for me because I've heard it all. I've heard it all. JFK Jr. is alive. He's hiding. He's actually a guy named Vince. I've heard so many stories. I've never believed any of them because they sound so far-fetched. And guess what? I've been hearing them since 2017, and here we are. None of them have come to be a reality. And some people will argue with me, what do you mean? They're all true. There's proof of everything. That's when you know you got to check out, right? That's when you know you're arguing with someone who just really doesn't consider the truth, the facts, life as we see it. They see a different world. I say, Godspeed, good luck, take care. What are you going to do? Anyway, your thoughts, your calls, everything else that's going on in America. Let's go to Ron, Coleman, Alabama, streaming the show out of Chicago tonight, WLS. Ron, what's up, brother?
Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
Y'all are good on them Britain deals over there. London.
Oh, yeah, $350 billion in AI. Hoping that, as the left likes to say, will trickle down. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I was wanting to know, I'm sorry if you've already talked about Arctic frost.
We did. We actually had Josh Hammer from Newsweek on, and we did talk about Arctic frost, but it's nothing wrong with talking about it again, right? The threat against Charlie Kirk, it actually backs up what I was just saying. Arctic frost was this top secret FBI program that, you know, the Biden administration was going after conservative organizations, including Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, to chill them, to make them ineffective, to make sure that they couldn't do what they were doing because they were making too much headway, too much progress, too much success, if you will. And I find it remarkable that we see the active threat against conservatives, the conservative movement, against Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. You see that whole thing unfolding here by the American left. Now you have a suspect in custody from the American left who, while there may be some holes in the story from, you know, our estimation, this man has, at least online, confessed and is not saying it's not him. And his family's saying it is. So to me, that makes a whole lot more sense than somebody being incredibly fragile and sensitive in another country saying they're going to send their foreign intelligence to assassinate someone. That's preposterous. I can't believe we're even talking about it, especially when there's others that are so much worse, right? If you're going to hit somebody for doing X, Y, and Z, you probably want to go after the top target. And I could think of 5 at least. I'm not going to mention any names. I'm not trying to put targets on anybody. I don't think it's going to happen. But my point is, I don't think that's the reason that Charlie was done in, right? Clearly, there were people opposing him. They were there. We see who's celebrating Charlie Kirk right now and his demise. And it's not, I mean, you can make whatever assumptions you want, but I see it coming from the American left. And I think you've got to be a particular kind of blind to not see that. Ron in Coleman, Alabama, thank you for your call, my brother. I appreciate you. And before I let you go, I let you go too quick. I think there was something else you wanted to say, so forgive me, Ron. But I'm going to take a pause right here. We're going to come right back. And actually, I have time. I can do it. I can do another call, and let's go to Denise, Ridgefield, New Jersey, who streams out of Atlantic City, WOND, Jersey in the building. Denise, go right ahead.
Well, first of all, you forgot that Elvis is still alive.
Oh, right.
But I wanted to make mention that, you know, I've been in the music business for like over 40 years. I'm 75.
Get out of here. I didn't know that. What do you do?
I have a 17-piece band. We do the big band sound in Atlantic City.
How fun.
And, yeah, and I have a band up here. I'm just restarting the band up in Bergen County. But having said that, I know my way around the entertainment business. My husband was a band leader for Connie Francis. He was like 30 years older than me, and he taught me the whole business. And I can tell you right now, Colbert, Kimmel, and Fallon, they need to step back and maybe get a job at True Value, because they have absolutely zero content in what they think they're supposed to be doing. They're not funny. They're not comedians. They're not entertainers. And how they got to where they are, God knows.
You know, Denise, I will say this. I always say this, and people, you know, tease me for it, but I think Stephen Colbert is a heck of a funny guy. I never watched him on this late program, but he used to have a show on Comedy Central, and it was hysterical. He made fun of conservatives. I thought it was very funny. And the Colbert Report, it was called. I thought it was terrific. Fallon and Kimmel, I can honestly say I've never really seen much of that either. Every now and again, I might watch an interview that will pop up on YouTube or something. And they can be funny, but for the most part, their monologues have become largely political, which I don't find funny because they're not really funny. Sometimes they're funny. You know who's sometimes funny with his political satire, even though he's a lefty? Seth Meyers. I think Seth Meyers can make a good joke, or his writers are really good at making a good political joke. But I agree with you that they've gone away from their talent, right? They might be talented. I mean, these guys were all good comedians until they got these jobs and then kind of just went hard left. But that aside, if they were to stick in their sweet spot, I think that they'd really do well, Denise.
I disagree. I think they're absolutely zeros. There's a woman named Mary Domino from Ozone Park, New York, who is absolutely the female version of Sebastian Maniscalco.
He's funny too.
Yeah, he's funny. Mary Domino, absolutely wonderful entertainer. I've known her for over 30 years, 40 years.
I got to check her out. Denise, I hate to cut you short, but I have to take a pause right here. Thank you for the call and for the suggestion of Mary Domino. Definitely check her out. Maybe we'll have her on the show. Denise in Ridgefield, New Jersey, listening by way of Atlantic City, WOND 1400. Coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S.
Always cover the best out there, and you cover it honestly, because you are the best out there.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, amigos, welcome back to the phones we go. I want to go to Salem, Arkansas, KSAR. Check in with our buddy Joe. Joe, go right ahead.
Hey, Jimmy Kimmel, that first part of his statement, totally out of line, should have stayed on the writing table. The second part, though, I thought was funny, and I thought it was appropriate.
Yeah, me too. When he said about Trump, about the reaction.
Oh, yeah, and he gave him 4 stages of warning, not 1 or 2 like Clinton. Talking about the ballroom, and my buddies, I said, hey, do you know any group of taxpayers that authorized putting a ballroom like Downton Abbey or something onto the White House? I believe Elon and him got into it because he saved taxpayers $1.2 trillion, Elon did. And then President Trump goes back and spends what's going to amount to $3 to $5 trillion. No, I think it's inappropriate at this time with all the debt and deficit. Now back to the shooting thing.
I would say if we're looking for taxpayers that allowed that, I'd say every last one that voted for Trump likely expected that he would do what he thought. I know for me, I may not like everything that happens, but I know that Trump's going to do what Trump does. He's going to leave his mark on the White House for sure. So I think that there's a lot more support for that than you think, but I'm with you. I think we have a spending problem for sure. Go ahead.
Well, it's just my opinion there. And then I tell you, I know about the algorithms and all that and the trolls on the Internet. My buddy's on the Internet, and he hooks me up to the telephone all night long. And I'm hearing some stuff, some factual stuff. I can tell it's factual because I did evidence course in fire department for volunteer fire department. And I'm seeing a lot of things here that tells me that this boy is not too bright. He's got mental problems. And that one-shot sniper deal, I now think this flash that came from a building a little ways off, I think 300 feet, they said they got it on cameras and cell phones, a flash, might be a trained sniper, and this boy's going to be a patsy. That's mainly what I want to say tonight.
Yeah. Well, I know what you're talking about. I just saw this video a little while ago of what appears to be a flash that some are saying might be a muzzle flash inside of the building to the side. The issue I have is we don't know. There's just so much we don't know. It all seems consistent, right? Everything, on the internet, everything makes sense when you can't ask real questions and you're not dealing with the people that have the evidence. So I don't have the answers to that. I would love to know. A lot of it makes a lot of sense. It wouldn't surprise me if the reason this guy isn't cooperating is because him and someone else were trying to do the same job. I don't know, because I don't believe. I'll tell you what I believe, at least what makes most sense to me. It makes sense to me that gangs, right? Gangs have been recruiting young men, very young men, that have no family base to feel a sense of belonging to join their gang. And they've made young people, I'm talking 11, 12, 15 years old, max, do a lot of their dirty work, a lot of their hits, a lot of the bad stuff. And we see this in some of the worst neighborhoods in America. Because the more vulnerable the person, the easier it is to manipulate them. I think the same thing happens when you have someone that is struggling mentally with the stuff that these people struggle with. By these people, I mean those on the left that are somehow intertwined with this culture of death amongst the transsexuals, right? And there's a number of these groups, right? There's one, Salt Lake City, Utah, armed queers. There's this other one, the Zizians. There's a few of these trans murderous cults. Not making it up. That's in the news. And I consider these people to be mentally ill, and they're very vulnerable. So I the way you could brainwash one person to do this stuff, you could do it to another. And like the president was talking about, we've got to cut the funding for that. And we've seen a couple of bills in Congress. So, it's a slow-moving process, but I suspect that we'll see some developments there. So, Joe, we'll keep you posted and keep us posted if you find out anything that before we do. I appreciate the call. Shout out to everybody that's listening. I'm coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, amigos, welcome back to the phones we go. Open phones across America. It's the speed round. Let's go to our buddy Lance, Galloway, New Jersey, also on WOND. By the way, Galloway, New Jersey is right by Atlantic City. 1400 in the building. Lance, go right ahead.
Good evening. How are you, Rich?
Wonderful,
I want to just make sure. The other night you had Lucas Miles on.
Yes, Pastor Miles.
That was a great little segment, and I did a little research on him, and I followed up. And, it's just that was perfect timing, too, in regards to, being tomorrow's the funeral for Charlie Kirk. But the reason why I'm calling is, again, you just rattled off Kimmel, Fallon, Colbert, Jon Stewart, Seth Meyers. But you didn't bring up the guy that really is from the left, Bill Maher. And he, on his podcast, he had a very, doesn't talk nasty or anything about it. It's pretty blunt, pretty frank and pragmatic about sarcasm when it comes to it and dry humor. But
I agree with you, Lance. I think he's pretty spot on with a lot of things. And I'd love to either have him on this show or go on his show. I think it would be a great conversation. And he does look at certain things pretty pragmatically. Other things, I think he's out there. But again, he's in California. He's a lefty, and I can't blame him for that. But you're right. He's also pretty funny. Shout out to Bill Maher. And Lance in Galloway, thanks for the call. Tony in Montreal, Paul in Boise. Shout out to everybody. Hasta la próxima. God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdes.